Hello and welcome to the second lecture of ethical issues for modern computer professionals. The first thing we need to understand the meaning of ethics and how it relates to society and computer science or computer professionals. Now, the easiest way to find out definition of ethics is to type ethics on Google, and when you type it, you are supposed to get multiple definitions um, with many complex terms, but you'll find that it is saying about some moral principles. Now, if you want to look for more, you can refer to the Wikipedia document on ethics. You will be able to find many uh, many important things about ethics in the field of study. But in a nutshell, what I believe, ethics is nothing but uh, a informal guideline for an individual how he or she uh, actually act or react to certain incidents uh, with other people in the society without considering self-interest only. So it's basically you need to think of well-being of others in the society. So it should be your act should not harm others. You should you should conduct for the well-being of the society. Your every act should be acceptable. What do you mean by acceptable? Acceptable terms comes from a social consensus that used to get developed over time. It's true that every individual can have his or her own ethics, um, but what really matters is that uh, it's all about how he or she uh, interacts with other stakeholders of the society. You cannot keep your ethics within yourself. It's not like some property that you can keep within yourself. So going beyond your self-interest, how you can act or react to certain incidents um, and plan your act, that informal guideline is basically ethics. Now, as I have said, this is just based on social consensus, which gets evolved over time. Uh, then certain informal guidelines are automatically gets established. It's not about imposing some rules or regulations, but there is a virtual guideline every society belong that have been developed over exercise over the years, and it really depends on the culture. I mean, ethical practices here in India may grossly differ from ethical practices from the West. Within India, even several different places have different ethical standards and means. Uh, and for an individual, at any point of time, it may differ from other point of time. I mean, it depends on time, place, and many other factors. Like some of your act, which you might have thought was ethical in past, may not feel ethical right now. Your values may get changed, your understanding might have got changed, and based on that, your ethical actions may also be different from time to time. So basically, it's not, there is no hard and fast rule set or regulations document that you'll refer before acting. But we usually learn through our life. It's the society environment where we grow up. Our family start from our family, from which we automatically learn how to be ethical and what are the values that develop that need to be developed to be ethical. Now, in professional fields, also, I mean, whatever I have discussed, it was a personal gross level, but in every profession, over the years, they have developed their own set of principles, and in many cases, it has been uh, formalized into some documents also. Like if you find uh, doctors need to take oath um, in their medical ethics, and many professions. There are certain guidelines which have been formalized, which have come out over the years of practice, several years of practice, and they have been formalized, and professionals are expected to abide by those set of uh, principles, and failing which there are organizations which punishes them also. There are means and mechanism of punishment also failing to meet that principles. And this set of principles varies across professions. I mean, the ethical practice from a doctor may vary from lawyer, from teacher, like that. There are some common practice also, but in most of the cases they vary. And again, these are all evolved over the practice, over the understanding of that people working in that profession and the stakeholders who are receiving service from that profession. Uh, Now, if you ask me, if I move on, what is ethics to you, what it means. So, as I have said, my understanding is, as a general citizen, is that I would always try to act uh, which will not harm others. I think before acting, if time permits, that my act should not harm others. I have always tried to do that, but sometimes it may not be feasible. In that, I mean, I may not get enough time before I react. But then also, after the event occurs, I used to think that whether the act was ethical from my point of view or not. If it is not, then I try to learn so that in future how I can act to minimize the harm. And as a professional, what I can say in a gist that I will always try that my professional act should carry some sense. That means my act uh, should be justified. That why I am doing, what is the reason, and it must satisfy my moral values. Like I never try to do something which just because everybody in my profession is doing it. So before doing anything, I always try to think that whether that meets my ethical and moral standard, and then I proceed to do that. Now, in ethics, you will always find dilemma, and all of us have faced ethical dilemma in our life in multiple occasions, when we actually find it very difficult to decide when we have multiple options to react for certain incidents. Uh, like I can say, uh, many of us in this profession used to face this dilemma when we are checking answer scripts for final year students, because uh, the, we know if we follow the same level of um, evaluation, um, strictness of evaluation of your paper, then many of you may not get enough marks, because in 8th semester, final year, people gets very casual after getting jobs in campus interview. But at the same time, if you cannot uh, get pass marks, then your job will be lost. So we used to face this dilemma many a times, and there is no hard and fast solution to that dilemma also. Like every dilemma, that dilemma is solved case by case basis. So I would expect that you, your batch won't put me in such a dilemma. Okay, expect it, because I don't know how to solve it, and the solution may not always uh, satisfy you, your demand. So be careful. Don't try to put me in such a dilemma. Here I have given, I mean, this is a kind of paradox when you are not sure what to do. Like very recently, I think some of you have noticed this news that uh, this dairy farm in Western countries, they are now using virtual reality based goggles, which will kind of give cows a feeling that they are moving around in Greenland, and which will relax them, and which will feel them better, and it will help them to produce more milk. So there is a dilemma. I mean, it's a paradox. Some of us may think it may not be ethical at all, for our just uh, for our greed to get more milk. We are doing something which is not. We are actually mm, uh, we are making kind of fraud to animal who really don't know what is going on. But some may be thinking that okay, it is not, um, it is giving cows pleasure, and so there is no harm. So this type of uh, uh, what to do in this scenario in a particular person, I mean particular professional. There are dilemmas, kind of paradox. There is no 0-1 answer that it is not ethical or it is ethical. So this type of thing we are supposed to face in modern technology. Now, how does ethics is important to computer science? As I have mentioned in my first lecture, that until few years back, uh, it was believed that computer science professionals or computer professionals are nothing to do with ethics at all. Unlike other professions like physicists, chemists, biologists, doctors, lawyers, or any other professions, uh, they are supposed to follow some ethical principles, which, as I mentioned, has already been developed over time, over several years of practices, with the social consensus among both the persons who practices this profession and others who are in the receiver end, the stakeholders of this profession. And in most of the cases, there are some well-defined documents through which every person understand that these are the ethical practices that I must follow. In computer science also there is some social consensus about certain things, as conventional issues like mostly concern mostly related to cyber crimes. I mean, as a sensible computer science professional, professionals are supposed to refrain themselves from getting involved in this type of activities like computer crime, including financial fraud, software theft, developing and spreading computer viruses, spreading spam emails or phishing activities, almost all related to cyber crimes and general plagiarism and hacking. So these were already uh, to some extent developed uh, uh, ethical practices that one should not get indulged into these activities that much. But one more thing I want to point it out, that uh, there is something beyond that. Like here is an example that um nobody would like to advertise that I have got a job in spammers world. You will come and advertise that I have got a job in Microsoft, I have got a job in um, any other companies, but he will never advertise. Nobody wants to advertise that or will be accepted or uh, greeted if they know that somebody is working in spammers world. But what I think that only refraining ourselves from getting indulged with these type of activities may not be sufficient. I mean, we need to be careful enough to mitigate the vulnerability that may promote uh, this type of activities. Like as I've said, that if you are working on software that will be used, a software or app that will be used for financial transactions, that the malicious activity actually uh, I mean can be done by exploiting the loopholes in that system. So as a professional, you have the additional responsibility to be careful enough to mitigate such vulnerability. And also the malicious activities, there is uh, uh, another way to prevent, I mean, there is another way of malicious activities is that ignorance of the users. Like many common users don't know how to use that particular app or thing properly with caution so that the vulnerability cannot be exposed. In our country, like uh, there are many people who are illiterate, not only computer illiterate, simply illiterate. It will be very difficult for them to handle that thing. So, as a CS professional, you should help common people from uh, exposing those vulnerabilities. You should train them. You should help your friends, relatives, and other people around your society, since you know better than them that how to use this type of apps so that they don't expose themselves to vulnerabilities. So it is beyond just uh, not doing any unethical, not getting involved in any unethical practices. What I believe as CS professional, we have these additional responsibilities also. And also, we should offer our constructive criticism to government policies also related to this CS. I think, like, uh, suppose government is promoting use of digital platforms with some technology which are not even mature. In that case, we should actually um, I mean, we should talk about its uh, impact on the society in our country, where, as I've said, many people don't even have literacy. So, what will be the negative impact? So, we should discuss and suggest that whether that is right time to uh, promote, or we should wait after this technology get matured enough so that all vulnerabilities have been taken care of, like this. So again, these were conventional issues. We somehow know how to tackle them and what are the ethical standards and ethical principles. But in last few years, as I mentioned in my past lectures, that with the tremendous growth of big data, AI, ML based uh, applications, there are newer issues that are coming up. Okay, so now you may find that many people are uh, involved. They are not formally, maybe they are formally trained or informally trained CS professional. They work for the social media cells of different party, and their whole job is to create fake news. manipulate news, create fake news, spread hatred, spread some agenda like that. And I don't think that nowadays nobody is ashamed that he or she is working under some cells like this. I mean, just like a few years back, uh, everyone were ashamed to advertise that he or she is working for spam company. But things are getting changed. Now people who are creating fake news every day can advertise themselves to be part of cell, a social media cell of some political party or religious uh, fundamental organizations. Jokes apart, as I mentioned in the first lectures, that with the tremendous growth in the domain of applications which directly impact society, like domain of applications involving all sorts of applications which deals with users' data and offers many lucrative services, may get involved privacy breach and underlying the ever hungriness of getting data. The data stealing and data broking is cropping up, and the softwares used for decision making in criminal justice, predictive policing, hiring, job hiring, um, credit scoring, that may involve algorithmic bias and may lead to discriminatory consequences. And these autonomous systems may lead to weaponizations of artificial intelligence, which is very fatalistic effect. The inability to explain the final decision to the end user, the black box phenomenon, uh, personalization related with intellectual isolations and redlining. These are coming as newer issues. I mean, uh, nobody have thought this type of thing uh, would be coming 5 years or 10 years back. So, social consensus about these are yet to be defined, because the social consensus on certain things usually in society gets evolved over time a bit slowly as the technology progresses also. But nowadays technology progresses so fast, it covers the domain of applications, it increases the domain, its domains of applications so fast, it will be challenging, very challenging to cope up with that changes and build a social consensus. So we need to be very careful in this. I mean, there will be a gap. Earlier, as I've said, for other professions, for conventional issues related to cyber crimes that are happening for a quite long time, and we have got enough time to deal with them and frame some common guidelines to deal with that. Uh, to deal with that and to come up with the ethical principles and standards. But that for the newer issues, since they are coming so fast and they are increasing, their rate of covering different corners of the society, different applications are coming, different consequences are coming. So it will be very difficult and challenging. But anyway, we need to do that. And that's the main motivation behind talking so much about ethics, society, and computer science nowadays. And we need to think beyond all or none policy. Like in earlier approach of ethical practice was that you should not get involved into this type of activities. You should refrain yourself from it. Now you cannot say that you should not get involved in developing a software that will help in criminal justice or job hiring or credit scoring, because the positive sides of this are enormous, and now we cannot just throw them out. We need to take best out of them. So we cannot live without the apps. If someone says that I will not use any app, I mean the society will not work. So we need to take the enormous advantage of the contribution of this positive side contribution of these applications and softwares with mitigating, identifying the negative impacts and mitigating them. So this is also very challenging. Earlier, dealing with ethical standard was a 0-1 policy, like that you either do act like this or refrain yourself from acting like this. But here, no 0-1 policy. Nowadays, if you want to install an app, you have to accept to give all your data, like for example. Now, if you don't want to give, you will not be able to take advantage of that app. This is the common thing nowadays going on. So what people used to do, they either accept or reject. They either get the benefit of that application or not. But as a technologies, as a common stakeholders, you may understand that this is not the way your technology should move. There should be some thing that, I mean, either you need to have enough trust to accept, or there will be some explanation that how much I can give and how much advantage I can give, some parameterized kind of acceptance. I mean, it's debatable, but still we need to consider what will be the best solution. But we cannot just go for all and none policy. We'll see these things later in detail also. Now, as an exercise, as a food for thought, how this, I mean, how difficult to handle ethical principle nowadays for CS professional. I'm giving you one food for thought that the personal assistants is a very, very, very lucrative applications Google has come up. But if you notice that it is impersonating humans. Now, as I've said, that person receiving at the receiving end really don't know that it is not you. It is a machine is talking with him or her. Now, it may not be comfortable to that person which are the receiving end. It may not be justified also impersonating. To somebody it may be okay, to someone it may not be okay. So how to deal with this type of situations? But for this problem, you cannot just ask Google to stop building or developing or selling personal assistant, can you? So think on that. So these are the crucial points you need to think in this current context. There is no 0-1 policy. So for your helping you, I mean, this is the Google response. This question was asked, obviously. The Google responded like that they are designing the future with disclosure built in. They will disclose and will make sure the system is appropriately identified. So they have identified that this impersonation may not be okay for some, and they have given the respect and what is sold at IAM, so they are trying to build up. So this type of things may happen, and if may not overlook and just be so over enthusiastic over technological contribution that you overlook this type of concern, which you may as a technocrat mean this is not the way. What will happen? It is doing good for both the parties. So you should not consider this thing. These are minor issues. Not like that. It may not be minor issues for some people, some society, or some profession. So, as I've said, so with great power of big data, artificial intelligence, machine learning based technologies, you will be dealing with that. Here comes great responsibility. So you have to be responsible to look into these consequences of your development, your journey through which you are developing the product in computer uh, applications. So you cannot just sit back, as I've said, and exploit the blind faith. You need to gain the trust of your users, your stakeholders. So, as I've said, the objective of this course is not to teach ethics in any way, but the course is all about uh, to explore the broader impact of the recent development of computer technology on society, how it is impacting, what are the positive sides, are already discussed mostly. So in this course, we'll be discussing mostly the negative consequences, but along with the positive sides also. And we'll never try to figure out that throw some technology out. It's not, we are not against technology. So basically judicial use of technology, you can say. And to analyze the principles of privacy of information, because the ethical first and foremost things we'll see will appear from the unregulated data collection and aggregation, because the uh, key point that works on all these technologies is data. Enormous amount of data is fed to these systems to come up with the solution, and the over excitement uh, of collecting data sometimes lead to uh, unregulated collation and collection of uh, data, and that may lead to privacy breach, loss of personal data, and many things which we need to understand. And then also in some applications, as I've said, as we have already seen, that the bias, inherent bias, intentional or unintentional uh, bias against certain section of population, maybe we have fatalistic. And so we need to identify the sources and try to mitigate them in our applications. And finally, to understand in all algorithm fairness, accountability, and transparency of algorithms, and a few other things also. So it's not about teaching ethics. So it will be a forum to discuss the newer issues that are cropping up and to learn what other professionals around the globe, what they're thinking, what researchers are doing to make our products more trustworthy, and our to our help to build social consensus about what we should or how we should react in our profession. So mainly this from my personal side, I would like to motivate you to use the power of modern technology with caution. So I'll prevent you to be over enthusiastic and apply the available technology everywhere and anywhere. So I'll try to help you to act like this. I would like to imbibe patience within you so that you think before applying your valuable potential, both your effort and your time and the modern development of skills that have come into your hand to anywhere and everywhere. And I would advocate judicious use of technology. It's not that you use technology everywhere because that is available. You try to use technology as judiciously as possible. Use technology, use that portion of technology which is exactly required. Don't overdo it. And in this course, in doing these things, what will achieve? You will achieve that what current trend is doing. It is undermining human wisdom to a great extent. It is saying it is depending on technology, machines, with their blind faith. It is presuming that the machines are unbiased and humans are biased. It's not like that. And as we have seen briefly in our past lecture, that these algorithmic decision makings are lacking for human values. And human values and wisdom is very important. And so I would like to help you understand the strength of human wisdom and help you prevent and help you people to prevent yourself uh, from undermining human wisdom and human values. Now, little bit administrative stuff for this course. So there will be few assignments in different lectures, and there will be deadline associated with them, and all assignment must be submitted through email in this particular email given, and in the subject line you should write assignment space the assignment number. Like if it is assignment number 2, in subject line you should write assignment space 2. So this standard has to be followed, and your mail should reach me before deadline. After deadline, no assignments will be considered. So before I conclude today's lecture, here is the assignment for today's class. 2 assignments. So first one is obviously you just need to formally write. You have already done that exercise. So why you have chosen this course as an elective from the other alternatives. And second one is also easy. Briefly explain one incident of your life where you had faced anything, and also describe how you had dealt with that. So the deadline is 2020. Thank you, and hopefully we'll meet next week for our third lecture.